All right, everyone, welcome back to the Saturday in Athens GA podcast and the Hammy Show. Finally, we had a stress-free football weekend as Georgia fans. It's been a long time. It feels like this has barely happened all year. Finally had a halftime lead, and it was a big halftime lead against what I would consider a pretty good team, and we finished the drill. So, again, just definitely much easier, much more relaxing for Georgia fans. We'll probably have another heart attack this weekend, but I don't want to speak anything onto us yet. Hammy, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, how did Georgia have so much success against Mississippi State? Obviously, 41-21, you love to see it against a really good SEC opponent. Where did that success start?
I think it's what we called last week, the run game. I think that's where it started. I looked it up. That is the first game we've had over 300 rushing yards since Florida State in the Orange Bowl when we killed them 63-3. So, heck of a performance from our guys. If you go back to that 2023 season, that huge game we had against Ole Miss in Athens, beat them like 52-17 or whatever it was. That was the only other game we had 300 yards in the past 25 games. So 300 yards on the ground, that is. So as you can see, that 2023 team really came into form in that Ole Miss game. Obviously, they lost to Alabama, but then they get right back on the wagon and kill Florida State in the Orange Bowl. All that good stuff happens. So I think getting the ground game going against this Mississippi State team was not only what brought us the victory, but is what's going to really hit for this Georgia team as we play into late November and into the playoff. So I think getting that run game, it's peaking at the right time. But I think that was the major point that stuck out to me. I mean, Nate Frazier having some explosive runs throughout the game, 3 runs over, I think, 20 yards. So that's, explosive plays count as anything over 15 yards, but we really haven't seen that bust wide open play until maybe you go back to that Ole Miss game in 2023 when Kendall Milton broke off like a 50-plus yarder. So it's so refreshing, so good to see a running back room get involved and really see the success that they have so deserved. But even in front of them, the offensive line looks like it's clicking as well. So those are the big things that stuck out to me: the offensive line, the run game, and kind of getting that going.
You called it with Frazier, talking about he just got to have more patience, and then we're really going to see him kind of break out. I mean, perfect call. I think that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, it looks like the two things that we critiqued him on were patience and holding on to the football. And it looks like he's gotten a lot better with both of those. But one thing you said, peaking at the right time, I think that's such a good theme for both of the teams this weekend. I feel like Arch Manning's kind of figuring it out at the right time. I hope Georgia's figuring out the pass rush and the run game. And the run game has been good all year, but specifically with getting Frazier to reach his full potential, I think we're peaking right there. Again, I think that's just a perfect way to describe this weekend against Texas. What are your initial thoughts on the top 10 SEC matchup in Athens, Georgia on Saturday night?
Dude, I'm pumped. Obviously, the last time we had a night game was Bama, and it didn't go our way. But what an atmosphere it was. I don't think anybody can discount that. I don't even think Bama fans would discount that. That was an electric atmosphere in Sanford Stadium. So I'm obviously looking forward to that. But I'm really looking forward to this game not being some scrub matchup. After Texas lost to Florida, they were down against Mississippi State before they came back. It's like, God, this team's going to show up to Athens, limping in there, and this is not going to be near as hyped up as it should be, as it was preseason. But Texas has flipped their season on its head and made a 180 turn and really figured themselves out. I think the biggest strengths that they have figured out over the course of this year is maybe Arch doesn't have the big, strong arm that we thought he did, where he could launch it 70 yards downfield and it was going to be explosive play after explosive play. Now, Sark figured it out, and he's calling plays to geared toward his quarterback, and that's dinking dunks. Like it's screen routes, it's slant routes, it's anything over the middle of the field, short routes. I looked it up. In the SEC, the number 1 and number 2 ranked quarterbacks with balls passed behind the line of scrimmage, number 1 Gunnar Stockton, number 2 Arch Manning. So we have a very similar offensive scheme, what Sark is calling and what Bobo is calling for Georgia. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I think it bodes well for this Georgia team in the sense that you're going against this defense is going against this offense in practice every single day, and it's a very similar offensive scheme. I think much like the running game that peaked and it's finding its peak against Mississippi State. I think our defense woke up and came to life. I think you probably would have seen it all over social media, but they talked about how on the field there was 4 juniors, and then the rest of the 7 were either sophomores or redshirt or true freshmen on the field, which is crazy. So of course you're going to have those kinks, those bumps in the road that you got to work out on your defense. They're going to make young rookie mistakes, like we've seen throughout the course of the year. But you get them in this system, they learn under Glenn Schumann. We're going to get pressure on the quarterback, and we're going to keep moving forward, keep chopping that wood, baby. So I'm really excited about this matchup. It's going to be a brawl. Obviously, Texas comes in with the vengeance factor, which is a little intimidating as a Georgia fan, but I think protecting our house, protecting Sanford Stadium, and going all out, getting an SEC win to close out the SEC regular season for Georgia. It's going to be electric. That's all I can say. I rambled on too much.
No, that was perfect. Absolutely a big time opportunity and a big stage. There's nothing like this. College football, top 10 teams in the SEC. It's playoff football. It's probably going to get cold at some point during the game. Like we're getting to that point. It's very exciting. Couple of things that I thought about though with this atmosphere. It was so cool having the light up bands last time. That was a new twist on the night game. I don't know if they're bringing that back. I would hope that they do. I'd assume they do, but I'm not sure. I know that most of our
Yeah.
fans don't want that second down song back. The da da da. People don't like that. People hate that. But yeah, people don't like. And I thought it was overplayed, definitely. But I thought it was really cool. It's also associated with bad memories, so if they scratch it, I'm not gonna be too upset. But you kind of you
No.
mentioned Arch just a little bit, and I've been watching him a little bit throughout the year. And obviously, he didn't look good in that Ohio State game. I think a lot of that has to do with it's his first ever start or first real start, and he's playing on the road week 1 against the number 3 team and now number 1 team in the nation. Like, so I cut him some slack there. But throughout the year, he's gotten a lot of flack for things that may or may not be his fault along the way. Look at his stats though in the game logs. He's thrown 300 the last 2 games. Since Florida, I think he's thrown only one interception in 4 or 5 games. But I wanted to ask you, how has Arch Manning progressed throughout the season?
I think it goes to what I was saying about kind of figuring out his real game plan, and that's largely credit to Sarkisian. I think he's one of the great offensive minds in all of college football, and what he's learned with his quarterback is Arch is a dual threat. He's got the running ability. It may not be like a Lamar Jackson running ability, but he does have that, and they're incorporating that into the game plan, and they're also establishing the run to a somewhat better standard than they were earlier in the year. I think Wisner has come on this year for Texas, and in the past few games, I look back at Red River when they played Oklahoma and got the huge win against the Sooners. They had a rushing attack that really came to be. That was like Arch's coming out party, all that good stuff. And so I think they're establishing the run. They're letting Arch get comfortable, and then they're not making him throw, 20-yard post routes downfield. They're letting him throw a screen route, letting him throw a slant over the middle 5 yards down the field. They're letting him complete 3, 4, 5 passes to start the game, and he's building up his confidence. We can say all we want about how level-headed he is because of his uncles that have played in the pros, and they know how to handle the pressure and all that stuff. But if you're a 20-year-old kid and you've got the Manning name on your back, and the Athletic is writing articles about how you're the first flop in college football, and you're getting all of this crap from the national media because of the hype that you received preseason, it's going to get to your head. I don't care who your uncles are. I don't care what your last name is. You can't block out all of that noise. So it was getting to him. And I think he had to have some confidence building moments. And it's brick by brick. And that's what we've seen. Oklahoma, I said it was probably his coming out party. It still wasn't his best game. I think his best football's in front of him. Vanderbilt, for the first 3 quarters, he looked a brick better, and he keeps getting better. He's got a bye week before he gets to Athens. I think that's going to be a huge, huge factor for Texas. Game plan wise, offensively, Arch getting some confidence on the practice field before he walks into a hostile environment in Sanford Stadium. So, like I said, I think it's brick by brick they're building that foundation. And the whole flop, the biggest flop in college football, the first flop, whatever they called it in that article, it's not true, man. He was like 5 games into the season when that article came out. He's got so much football in front of him. I think he's going to play a really good game against Georgia. I think it's going to be a dogfight, and he's going to come back to Texas next year. And we'll probably see him down the road next year, and he's going to be probably a Heisman candidate. I mean, that's just how it goes. That's how good of a player he is. I think that's what his genetics are. So the last name does do something for you there, but I think Arch has definitely progressed over the season.
I agree 100%. And I just wrote this down. I I hate Texas, right? And I've it's crazy how quickly I've grown to hate a team that we have nothing to do with throughout most of history. Um, but I respect Arch because before the season, he's the Heisman. Everyone's touting him as just the greatest football player to ever walk the earth, right? And they're saying that Texas is the new Alabama. I think that was also the Athletic. Um, and then he plays a bad first couple games, and he just gets a bunch of hate. Not even I don't even want to call it hate, but just slander. Slander from the media. A bunch of negative press surrounding him, and he handled it greatly. He handled it really as well as you can as an athlete when you're getting some slander for your performances. I remember watching his post game press conference after the Ohio State game and pretty much saying that he had to be better. And I'm like, again, I can't stay in Texas. I respect the way he's handled it, and obviously, I think good things have come back to him as far as he's stayed with the process, he's kept working, and he's kind of reaping the benefits of that work and just being a leader. I feel like based off what I've seen. So respect to him though for everything that he's gone through with that. But moving on to Georgia specifically, what are 3 keys for success heading into this football game for Georgia? As we mentioned, the run game is really taking off. We saw a better pass rush last week. And by the way, credit to Glenn Schumann, right? Because we were talking about defense a minute ago from that game. Forgot to add this in. I feel like he called a much more aggressive game. Our defensive line is not great at getting pressure on the quarterback. That's really a fact at this point. I'm not trying to just be angry at our defensive line, but if you watch the games, we really don't get a lot of push. And when we can throw our linebackers in the game in some way, or throw our linebackers into the backfield and get some pressures, that's a beautiful thing. And I think kind of to that note, CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson have improved a lot over the course of the year. And CJ Allen's a great player, obviously, but I think even since the beginning phases of the year, so I had some critiques of him, even though I thought he was good. And the last, I don't know, 4 games to me have been pretty perfect from him, or an A grade. But anyway, moving on past that, what are 3 keys for success for Georgia this Saturday night in Sanford Stadium?
So I think I've said it every single week, and that's first establish the run game. So I'll say that just as a given, but I'll give you 3 more. Number one is momentum. Keep the train rolling. What we did against Mississippi State, like we said earlier, I think it's finding our peak. We are peaking at the right time. We are still on the climb. We've got our best football in front of us, but as long as we stay on that upward trajectory and that momentum rolling, I think we can really kind of take over this game and do the whole Georgia Anaconda thing of sucking the life out of this team before they can really get going. So I think keeping the train rolling, keeping that momentum on our side, and using the home field advantage to your advantage. I think this crowd is going to be juiced. It's going to be into it. Like, let's see some defensive plays. Let's get to the quarterback. Let's keep the momentum going. So that's key number one is the momentum. Number two is yards after the catch. I think Zachariah Branch is the most effective yak player in the country. He is one of the most efficient receivers. He's catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he is getting upfield for 10, 12, 15 yards almost every single time. He's impressive. But even the slant routes over the middle, the deeper post routes, out routes to the sideline, if you give him a foot on the person, on the defender, he's gonna bust it for 5, 10 more yards after the catch. So I think yak from Zachariah Branch is a huge factor, but for also our other wide receivers, I think Dylan Bell is gonna have to make a step forward, take a step forward, and really take kind of be that receiver that we've all thought him to be. He's always been that Swiss Army knife, and I think he's found that role again. He obviously had the fumble against Mississippi State, which sucked. I don't even know if it was a fumble from where I was sitting in Starkville, but he was definitely, kind of finding his groove. He had that huge catch against Ole Miss, but getting some yards after the catch with Dylan Bell. And then our tight end game. Delp and Lucky have really come on in these last few games as serious threats in the pass game. They're getting open downfield, and they're making 50-50 ball catches, but after the catch they're still getting yards, so we got to keep that going, keep the yards after the catch going. And then the third, and I think maybe the most important, is missed tackles. If we are lesser in the missed tackles category on the box score, I think we win this game, because like I said earlier, these offensive schemes of Georgia and Texas are very similar. It's a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of screen passes, a lot of short slant routes. If those guys get open, if they have, they're catching the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and we've got a DB cushion 10 yards off the ball, they can make a move once you get to the open field and it's a one-on-one defender versus offense versus receiver. So, like, you have to kind of get your feet set and make those tackles on the slant routes over the middle. Our linebackers have to protect that area of the field. I know we're going to bring pressure on Arch. We're going to try and get to the quarterback, but we cannot leave the middle of that field open. We have to, even if they get the ball in the air, even if they catch it, we've got to get them to the ground immediately. So I think if we are in the lesser category of that missed tackles stat line on the box score, I think this game could go well in Georgia's favor.
Absolutely. I love how you mentioned momentum, because it's something I've kind of gone back to a good bit. That Georgia defense needs one stop every single week, and then they figure it out. It feels like, right? Again, like I mentioned this last week or the week before, but like Ole Miss, you get the stop, shut them down. Bama, same way. Tennessee, same way for almost a full half of football. So I think that's a really important note there. I love how Noah Thomas has taken a step up these last 2 weeks with the absence of Colby Young, who I really miss watching. I really do. He's such a fun player to watch. Cause I mean, he was great in every single facet of the game, and I think Noah Thomas has very similar potential to him. I loved the. I mean, it's a 64-yard touchdown from your true wideout. So and it was not like a.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't bust. I mean, I guess it kind of was. I mean, he's fast, right? He made a very athletic football
Yeah.
play, a very impressive football play. Dylan Bell has been so underrated for so long. It's been awesome to see when he breaks out this year. He did it against Kentucky. He had quite a few awesome plays against Ole Miss. He had that long catch on the final drive that really helped us get into field goal range and get a more comfortable lead before the defense went and did their thing. And then obviously, as you mentioned, Zach Branch. I know I mentioned this last week. He does not drop a pass when he's about to just for sure get popped by a safety. Fearless in that
Yeah.
regard. He'll go up and catch a pass, and he'll just. I mean, you saw it against Bama too. I think it was Bama. You've seen it against Florida, and I'm pretty sure one other team. But he'll catch it. He'll get absolutely obliterated, and anyone else, I'm like, oh no way, he just caught that, and he holds onto the ball. And so I mean, that's such an underrated facet of his game, because I mean, yes, his speed is incredible. Yes, he's a very good route runner, but like how consistent he has been on third downs, like he's a great weapon. On the flip side, what does Texas have to do to come out of Athens with an upset W on Saturday?
I think their defense is a stout defense. I think going into the year, they were probably hyped up to be the number one defense in the country. They've kind of taken a step back, and maybe they're not the top defense in the country, but I still think they're one of the best in the SEC. I think they're still probably top 20, maybe 15, maybe even 10 defense. And where that helps them is in the run game. Because, like we talked about, we are peaking at the right time. We're getting that run game going. Nate and Chauncey, that two-headed monster in the backfield, is a lot to handle for any defense. I don't care if you're Ohio State or if you're Rice. Like, we have a really good running attack now, and we saw it against Mississippi State. But Texas is a good run defense. I think their D line and their linebackers, that front seven unit, is a stout group, and I think they can shut down the run. It's just how soon can they get it? It's much like Georgia in the sense that it takes one play, one drive to get the stop, and then it clicks. is that like the question for Texas? Do Nate and Chauncey kind of get the momentum? Do they start getting going? And then it's you look up and it's the third quarter. They've got 180 rushing yards on this defense, and you have your hands up because you're down 13 and you're down two possessions and you don't know what to do. So it's how soon this Texas defense can get us figured out in the run game. If they get us figured out in the first quarter, even in the first half, while the game could potentially still be close, then I think Texas can sneak in and have a heck of a second half. But the next thing is also similar to Georgia in the sense that Texas really hasn't played a full four-quarter start to finish till the fat lady sings hard knocking just SEC football game with a win. Now, Georgia hadn't either until Mississippi State. And really, for the Mississippi State game, you could say we still only played three quarters because we didn't score a touchdown in that first quarter. Mississippi State drove right down the field, but we got that fumble right at the end of the first quarter. So I give us about 3.5 quarters, maybe, of a full game that we played against Mississippi State. But Texas really hadn't done it either. That Vandy win, which was probably their statement win of the season, Vandy came all the way back and they forced it to be a one possession game late in the fourth quarter. Vandy really took over that fourth quarter. They owned the fourth. So if Texas plays a complete game from start to finish, it sounds like the stupidest just layup kind of key to this game. But if Texas plays a full four-quarter game, Arch is clicking enough, their run game is clicking enough, and their defense stands strong, ends this run game for Georgia, then I think Texas can really win this game.
I think it's a totally valid key. Like, obviously, there are things we can measure in football. How many yards is this team getting per game? What are they ranked defensively? What's their scoring defense look like? All these things to say, teams have a chemistry makeup, and Georgia's like that team where it's like you have to play four quarters to beat Georgia. They may not be the best offense or the best defense or
Right.
whatever, but one thing they have that doesn't go on the stat sheet is they have connection, physicality, composure, and they don't quit. Right. So that's what makes Georgia so tough to play. On your point about the Mississippi State game, I've kind of thought about it a little bit, and it's hard to word this, but I think it was a complete game or fairly complete game, but it's still not our best game. Like, we still allowed 21 points, even though one of those was against the second and third string. Still allowed 21 points. You still turned the ball over at a point. You still had to settle for field goals on some drives where you probably could have gone and scored a touchdown, right? So it's a matter of Georgia. I believe we're figuring it out, sort of, as of the last couple weeks. We still got a long ways to go, and we still haven't played our fully best game. Like, Georgia's best game, I take against anyone in the country. Part of that's probably bias, and I know people will say that, but the other part of that, it is so much of it is the mentality. And I think if you look at talent as well, Georgia has just as much or more talent than anybody, and they've got a culture that no one can match. So that's why I like Georgia's odds so much here on out through the rest of the season. Not saying we're going to win the national championship. I'm just saying I like our outlook at this point. And of course, we've already mentioned the SEC championship and all that stuff. We'll get more into that next week. And then the other part I wanted to mention about that was if we go into halftime close or tied with a team, I love our chances because we make incredible second half adjustments. And I think Kirby Smart and his staff deserve a lot of credit for that. A lot of times, Georgia will come out that second half, regardless of how the first half ends, just looking like a completely different team. Um, I think that's such a valuable thing to have ever, but especially like in this age of college football where you play so many stacked teams and the talent distribution is much more of a thing. Anyway, uh, you have made this next segment a little difficult the past few weeks because you either don't give me a team or you pick a really weird number, but we're going to do this anyway. What's your score prediction for Georgia versus Texas? And there's no rules. Do any of that stuff if you want. It just makes it, I don't know. Just what do you got?
I'm going to keep the trend going because it's been good luck.
It's
So I'm
working.
not going to give you
It's
a
working.
team. I'm going to give you something weird. Yeah. Hey. If it's working, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go.
But let's go. Oh, I've gone. I think 36. Let's do 32 to uh 22. I
I'll
don't know. I'm
take it.
not telling you
That's
who.
okay. I hope the 32 is us, but I could. this
Yeah.
is a weird game, right? Because I could see Texas going and putting up 20. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen, you know? But I don't know. I think they could put up a low 20. I'm not sure, though. Anyway, I'll go ahead and give mine. Um, let's say 27-17. Let's say that, and I like that because I think it'll probably be close. I mean, I think these are two really evenly talented teams. I mean, arguably Texas is more talented. I think we're higher on the whole composition rankings. Um, I do think this will be a game that's close at half. I think it'll either be tied or we're down. If we're up, then I love our chances, but we'll probably be down, knowing the history of this
Same.
season. I would love to get the ball that first drive, go out, score a touchdown. I think if we can take a quick lead in the third quarter, the crowd will get into it and we'll shut them down. That's something we wanted to see against Alabama,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. Was you go into the half down? If you take a lead back, your crowd gets into it and suffocates the other team, and they didn't. That is what happened against Ole Miss. That you take a quick lead, crowd gets into it. Ole Miss's offense is suffocated. So I could see that sort of trend this week, and something that someone mentioned to me earlier, and before we even spoke about this, I was kind of thinking about this. This feels very similar to Georgia Tennessee last year for several reasons. It's a night game. It's your third to last game of the season. I know that's not significant, but it just feels so similar. You're playing for huge playoff and SEC implications, and you're playing a team that wears a horrible shade of orange. So there's a lot of consistencies between last year's matchup and this year's matchup. But I think it's very similar. It could be the same sort of
Yeah.
deal. Like, hey, closer tied at halftime. Georgia comes out of the gate, does what they need to do. Crowd makes it hell for the other team, and the Dogs win. I love that storyline, and I'm going to stick with it. So
Yeah.
27-17, I've kind of been around that 10-point range. I think the spread's 6.5 last I saw. So and so I mean that'd be Georgia covering. I think somewhere from 7 to 10 is probably a good realistic range for a score prediction. Um, but hey, we're similar as far as how much we're winning by. So, or you don't even know who you picked,
Yeah.
but well,
Exactly.
hopefully it'll be Georgia next week.
Yeah.
But anyway, Hammy, thank you for
Yep.
coming on the show as always. Go Dogs! Let's go get a win against Texas for the third straight time.